Welcome, everyone, to the Best of Markham podcast, brought to you by me, Igor Klibanov from FitnessSolutionsPlus.ca. Here with me today is Karl Hale. Karl, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Igor. Really happy to be here. Karl Hale, I'm the founder of Premier Racquet Clubs Markham and Premier Racquet Clubs Corp, which has six clubs now. I was born in Jamaica. I came to Canada when I was 10, with just my mom and my brother and my sister. Low income family. There was tennis courts across the street. I started playing when I was 13, a little bit late. But my brother was a very good player, and I really looked up to him. So I fell in love with the sport, and I was a really hard worker. So when I was under 14, I was 50th in Ontario. When I was first year under 16, I was like 70th in Ontario. And then when I was last year under 16, I was third. So I
Mhm.
really improved a lot. But what happened there was the NYTA, which was the first affordable, accessible bubble in Canada. George Fowler and Dave Duguay, who's still there, they allowed me to play for free at 7 a.m. or 10 p.m. when the courts were open. So it really helped my development to give me the court time and the volume I required. And then I got a scholarship to University of New Mexico. Then I lived in Japan for 7 years, which is a great experience, learning about a different culture and a different way of living. Then I came back to Toronto, got in the racket club business. Then I became the tournament director of the National Bank Open 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Yeah, that's what I said. It's a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time, and which has been just a dream of mine because I've developed really strong relationships with all of, the best players, probably the greatest era in tennis with the big three and Andy Murray, the big four, and
Mhm.
also the female players, Serena, etc. So, and then along the way, I started a charity, Helping Hands Jamaica Foundation. So I've been doing that for 20 years as well. We've built 27 schools all across Jamaica. Karina helped build one with us, and Sean Paul, Shaggy, a lot of other celebrities, and just regular folk like myself. And then 5 years ago, we started the racket club business. The first one was Markham, and it's been really successful. And that's why we're here to talk about how it impacts the community and really helps youth like myself.
Wow, what an amazing background from humble beginnings in Jamaica to I think last time we chatted, you mentioned in around Pina Plaza, which makes sense with
Yeah.
the NYTA. I actually used to live very close to the Pina Plaza up until about 6 weeks ago. I was on Leslie and Shepherd, um,
Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and I used to play at the Henry Farm Tennis Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Small world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what do you like most about entrepreneurship?
Well, I like building teams. I've always been a people person. When I played tournaments, I would always hang around, win or lose, and converse with the other players and the tournament directors. So I really enjoy building strong teams and systems. And now at a vintage age, I'm 58. I like working. We have a lot of interns. So I like working with them and trying to help their careers. During my journey, when I ran clubs, I've had six or seven pros that have gone on to run some of the biggest clubs in Canada, which is probably as a professional my proudest thing because it's, when people talk to me, it's not my success. My success is that I have good people around me. We enjoy the work and we do really good things. So it's really important to have really, really good teams.
Yeah, amazing. When I was in martial arts, the our head instructor, he would say that my greatest dream is to have my students do better than me in competitions, in tournaments.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And your greatness is in the hands of others because nobody makes it alone. You need to really have good people around you to elevate whatever your vision is and whatever your strategy is. So, as you said, with successful entrepreneurs, you have to have a really good vision. You have to be a really good person to work with people and make them feel good and enjoy the journey of wherever the company's going.
Hmm.
So it's just really exciting, and you have the creativity. You're the decision maker, so you can decide whatever you want to do where the company goes with the input of the team, and that's good and bad because, as you know, with entrepreneurs, we make some really good decisions and we make some really bad decisions. So
Yep, totally. I recently just wrote a book about all of my bad decisions, and there's way more of
Yeah.
those than the good decisions.
Yeah, but that's how you learn, I think one of the things with an entrepreneur is that in making those decisions, the real secret is learning from them,
Yeah.
because as you're making, as I make decisions now at 58, when things come across my desk or conversation and somebody says, "Hey, let's try this," I can revert back to 20 years ago when I was in a similar situation and I said yes and it didn't work. And I can
Hmm.
say, hey, I'm not so excited about that. Can we look at it in another way? So it's really exciting, but I think people really, everybody likes to be an entrepreneur and talk about being an entrepreneur, but they don't know the downside. That the
Yes.
downside is that, it's a 24/7 job. Everything stops with you. If you work at a company, you leave at 5 o'clock, you're good. But
Hmm.
when you're an entrepreneur and you have, 100 people working for you, you're responsible for them, their lives, their careers, your company. So it's a lot of responsibility.
Oh yeah, totally. And I always say, I think I heard an entrepreneur say this. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a 9 to 5. You have a when I open my eyes to when I close my eyes, and it doesn't stop on weekends. It keeps going on weekends as well.
Yeah, but I disagree, Igor. Actually, even when you close your eyes,
It still keeps going.
it still keeps going. I dream about it,
Yeah,
So I just love it. One of the things I tell people that are entrepreneurs is that really stick to your lane.
yeah,
To be become an expert in what you love and just keep working hard at it, and you'll break through. But sometimes entrepreneurs like to jump from one idea to the other idea.
yeah.
And there's a really interesting story about that where they say like, we'll call the ultimate successful entrepreneur a five.
Hmm.
That a lot of entrepreneurs go one, two, three. And then when they get to that three level, they don't push through and they start something else and they go one, two, three, one, two, three, one, two, three, and they never get to that five because they're
Yeah,
always kind of going down and up and down and up. So just stick with what you know.
yeah,
You'll make it. Just keep pushing through.
yeah. Shiny object syndrome.
Yep, exactly.
And yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, you're initially there's gonna be way more failure than success, and even later there's still gonna be way more failure than success. As long as you learn from your failures, you thoroughly analyze what went wrong, and when it comes to business, like especially marketing, I think di like from a diagnostic perspective, it's very, very simple. It really only comes down to three things: message, market, medium. So what
Yeah,
went wrong there? Every marketing mistake I've ever made, which by the way was only evident in retrospect, not looking forward,
yeah, yeah,
um, could have been diagnosed with one of those three things. Something went wrong with message, market, or medium.
yeah,
Um, just because that version of that experiment or that campaign failed, let me try a different version. Let me
yeah,
see if that works. So a lot of it is like when I was new in entrepreneurship, I was hoping for success and expecting success. Nowadays, I'm
yeah,
way more cynical and I'm hoping for success but expecting failure.
yeah.
So my mindset is very, very different than it used to be early on.
And I think one of the things that people underestimate is volume.
Yeah.
So if it's work or marketing or what have you, so you're in fitness, I'm in tennis,
Hmm.
we have thousands and thousands of competitors. So how are you really going to differentiate yourself? Obviously,
Yep.
excellence, you're knowledgeable. But one of the things I tell people is just volume. So it's just work. So,
Yep.
instead of getting up at 7, get up at 6. You have an extra 7 hours a week, extra whatever that is a year. And if you're doing marketing, instead of doing little niggles, here and here, you've got to really, the social media, everything you do, penetrate the market because it's such a busy landscape out there.
Hmm.
To break through to the consumer, it takes a lot of energy. So if you don't have that energy and drive, it's going to be very, very difficult for you.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, this is what's energy to me. This is one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship is that each failure doesn't necessarily discourage me. It actually energizes me.
Yeah,
It's like when I used to compete in martial arts, I'd love winning. but I
Yeah.
really, really hated losing. So when
Yeah.
I lost, I was even more motivated to analyze my performance, what didn't go right, well, how can I train differently or harder, etc. And same
Yeah.
thing in marketing my personal training business. When I have a successful strategy, I'm very happy. It's successful, it's profitable, etc. However,
Yeah.
when I have an unsuccessful strategy or an unsuccessful campaign, I'm very interested in why it wasn't successful, and it makes me analyze it that much harder to figure out, well, how can I make it successful?
Yeah.
Um,
They did a study of athletes, musicians, professionals, and tried to find the commonalities. And they found two things that really stuck out with them. One is the love of practice. They
mhm,
actually really enjoy. These are the greats, the best
yeah,
of the best. They really practice a lot and they like to practice. And number two is fear. So, and this surprised them how the delta between the joy of winning and the fear of losing, they
yeah,
thought it was much closer,
yeah,
but there was a huge gap. The fear of failure and losing was by far the biggest driver.
yeah,
And there was a lot of study into that. Some was like childhood trauma, some was other different things like that of why these people fear so much.
yeah.
They want to make their dad proud, their mom proud, whatever it is. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I read the same thing about athletes. Like there's some like, extreme winners. Like Michael Jordan comes to mind. In the 1980s, there was a boxer named Sugar Ray Leonard. Um,
Yeah,
like those guys, they just hate, like they loved winning, but they hated to
yeah.
lose.
You know
Um,
what's really interesting about them too, that I
yeah,
find fascinating, is if you look at the greatest athletes, because we're
yeah,
both athletic, and you look at Michael Jordan, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tom Brady, um, Roger Federer, Nadal, these athletes in their sports, they don't have the highest vertical.
hmm,
They're not the fastest runner.
yep,
They don't have the biggest serve. They don't have any of that. So it's really interesting. That's why it's so hard to define who's going to be the greatest, Novak Djokovic, because they don't have a singular um, skill that is so glaring that makes them the greatest. Otherwise, it would be
yeah,
really easy to define who's going to be the greatest. But what
yeah,
they do have is what we just talked about. Their fear of losing is so high, that they're more determined than the next best guy in the world,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that level is so extremely high. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that the desire to avoid losing is a stronger motivator than the desire to win.
Hmm.
And it works not just in
Yeah,
sports, it works in business. I
yeah,
heard
yeah,
an interview with NVIDIA CEO on the Joe Rogan podcast, Justin Huang, and he says, I'm not that ambitious. I just don't want to let my staff down, and that's why I keep
yeah,
growing."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of marketing, what do you do for marketing? How do you get new clients, members, etc.?
Well, I think for us, we're so heavily member focused that it really goes by word of mouth. We take care of our members and we ensure they have a great experience. We survey them twice a year. And even up to yesterday, we have some really new things for the members coming up this season that they're going to be really excited about.
Hmm,
So our number one pain point, we're affordable, accessible tennis. We're the
hmm,
cheapest in town as far as price point, but we have the best coaches and the best programs. So they want more court time. So we actually figured out a way where they're going to have much more court time available this winter. So the members know that we operate this way, that we're always thinking about them. So they tell their friends and family that this is the place you want to be because when we come to this environment, it's not a facility, we're people,
yeah.
and we look after the people in the environment and they reciprocate and spread the word.
Yeah, I think that's why you guys are so successful because people have this notion of you get what you pay for, but with you guys, you get more than what you pay for.
Yeah.
You pay the lowest of any club, and yet what they get, you guys survey their members. I belong to not a high-end club, but a medium-end club, and they never survey me.
Yeah.
So you get like there's a certain expectation, but your members' expectation is here, and the actual delivery is up here. So that
Yeah.
gap is what creates your marketing for you, powerful word of mouth, etc.
Yeah, and we take care of our staff. We have a clear pathway for our staff, how you can move through the company and elevate yourself through the company. We have weekly, monthly meetings. We survey them, as I said. So everybody in our ecosystem understands how we operate and we pay attention and we care,
Yeah.
so it permeates through all the layers of our clubs.
Yeah, yeah. When management treats the staff well, the staff treat the
Yep,
members well, and if it's a great ecosystem. It's the
exactly.
same. It's the same for me. I have 14 trainers working for me, and the general stats in the personal training industry are not good. An average
Yeah,
trainer is a trainer with one gym for 3 months, and an average trainer is a trainer as a career for a year and a half. So far,
yeah.
my trainers are with me for 2 to 9 years and counting. Um, so yeah, I mean, if my staff are happy, I know my clients are happy. So
Yeah, this the
yeah,
same thing with me. I have in Markham, I have her name's Diane Ryan, and she's worked for me and I never say work for me, I just say we work together
yeah, same.
for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I've had, Valerie Ushanova's worked for me for 15 years. So we have very little turnover and it makes things easier
Hmm.
because we understand how to work together as a team and it's all about the team.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You want to, and that's another thing that are really why you like entrepreneurship so much. You get to choose who your coworkers are.
Absolutely.
Right. And if you jive with them during the interview, you're probably going to jive with them later on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that awesome.
Not
What do
this, it's not the same with family.
you, no, you don't get to choose them. You got what you got.
Exactly.
And what are you working on right now that's exciting to you?
I'm always excited. So I have a lot of things I'm working on right now. We have it's our 20th anniversary for our charity. So we're building a school July 6th in Jamaica. So I'm really excited about that. We have three clubs opening in October, two in Toronto, one in Brampton. We did a soil turning yesterday for Brampton. So that's really exciting and a lot of work. Um, the National Bank Open, which I'm the tournament director, as I mentioned, for 20 years. Vicky Mboko is
Yep.
from Toronto, and she's the first. It's the first time we had a defending Canadian champion come back to Toronto.
Beautiful.
So for women's tennis, it's super exciting, and we have some new innovations on site that we're going to reveal shortly. So I love tennis and I love the tournament. And what people don't realize is the National Bank Open is the largest combined tennis event in the world. We did 503,000 last year, Toronto,
Hmm.
Montreal. Indian Wells did 527 this year, so we got to beat that record.
Right.
So we have to really make sure the fans in Markham come out and support our tournament. And it's the largest annual event in Canada,
Yeah.
sporting event. So, just a lot of things, all tennis or charitable related that I'm really passionate and excited about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the National Bank Open. Back when it was still the Rogers Cup, that like the
Yeah,
only live tennis match I've ever been to in my entire life was actually Rogers Cup. And I took my dad there. I think it was around 2015 or 16. I don't remember the exact
yeah.
year, but the finals were Federer against Tsonga. Um,
Wow.
do you remember who
Yeah.
that was? Remember what year?
That would have been probably 16 or
Yeah, okay.
14.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seems about yeah, right around that time. That's when
yeah,
I took my dad
yeah,
there. Yeah, great tournament. Well done.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And what obstacles have you encountered in your time as an entrepreneur?
Oh, every day is an obstacle, you just you get used to hearing no, and you just have to overcome that and figure out a way to get to the solution. So as an entrepreneur, your mindset has to be very much solution based. Don't dwell on the problem because there's
Yeah,
problems every day, everywhere. It's how do you overcome those problems in the best way you possibly can.
yeah,
And we've had, just so many different obstacles from constructing the sites to, just getting a site up. You have trouble with snow and
yeah,
weather. Staff sometimes you have some issues, members sometimes you have some issues. You
yeah,
have hundreds of members and staff. There's always things going on. But, the key is to all of that is to have a strong value system in your organization And
Hmm.
that's always the default. You go to making the decisions based on the values,
Yeah.
and then you always make the best decision you possibly can at that time.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that message is actually echoed with a lot of the entrepreneurs that that I've interviewed on this podcast, which is what are my values? Based on that, what's the decision from that? So, for
Yeah,
example, one of the my past interviewees, David Song, who's a chiropractor and owner of 4 clinics called Rehab Hero. Um, He's thinking his value system is what's the best thing I can do for my patient? Not
yeah,
necessarily what's the most profitable thing I can do for me, but what's the
yeah,
best thing I can do for my patient? So he thinks, but if I get this piece of equipment, it's costly, but it's going to get me better patient results. He says,
yeah,
but I'm a chiropractor first, entrepreneur second. I'm going to get that
yeah,
equipment.
yeah.
Um,
And I think what he's saying as well, in addition, is what we try to do is just long-term thinking.
mhm.
You never think of the short term.
Yeah,
So we've made a lot of decisions that financially didn't pan out in the short term.
yeah,
But as long as the customer is happy, the member is happy, the staff member is happy, it'll come back to you in the long term.
yeah.
So, that's what you always want to be thinking and feeling and permeating through your ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, plus we're small business owners.
Yeah,
We are in direct contact with the members, with our clients.
yeah,
Not like large corporations where there's a really, really large gap between the CEO and the end user. If
yeah,
we see our members happy, that helps us sleep at night.
yeah.
Whereas if we have no contact with them, it's a different story.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I ran a major pickleball event about 7 years ago at a club downtown, and you had to put lines down on the tennis court, tape down on the tennis courts. But to measure the taping and the lines, you had to put little marks where to put the tape.
Hmm.
So on Sunday after the event, the guy who was running the event for me, he pulled the lines up. Everything was a great event. We had like 300 people. DBC was there, Nestor, Milos, all these celebrities. It was fantastic. I was so happy. So then the operator of the site called me up and said, "Hey, Carl, we have hundreds of marks on the court. It's a problem." So I
Hmm.
said, "Okay, let me go down there." So I drove down there and I saw these marks, and there it was a problem. So I went to Canadian Tire. I grabbed sponge and soap and all the stuff I could myself, and I started to rub and try to scrub the marks out, but they wouldn't go away. So I asked the gentleman who ran the tournament, I said, "What happened here?" And he's like, "It's your problem, not my problem." And I said, "Well, you did it. So help me out here." And he's like, I don't know." So I said to the operator, I said, "So to resurface a court, it's going to cost about 20,000 bucks." And it was two courts.
Hmm.
So I said to him, I said, "Hey, listen, you gave me an opportunity to do this. And I respect and appreciate that. And this is my fault. I'm the operator of the event. So I'll pay for the resurfacing, and that's just the way it is. And he said, "Listen, Carl," he said, "we have to resurface this courts anyways." And he said, "I saw you Sunday night scrubbing and doing the best you could. So don't worry about it. We're good. It's all fine. It was a great event." And you move on.
Yeah,
But the point is, you have to be accountable,
of course.
and don't try to run away from issues, because your reputation is the most important thing. So you want to be the person that, you know, everybody says when it comes down to the crux of a situation, he's going to be there,
Yeah,
because most people are not.
exactly.
Most people are going to say, "Hey, Igor did it, talk to him."
Yeah.
So again, long-term thinking, you got to be accountable for every situation. Just own it, and it'll really develop a strong reputation and benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You want that when somebody's talking behind your back, what are they saying? You want them saying he's rock solid.
Yeah. And I think, in our environment, and I'll be fully transparent, and, when I was in college, my coach called me in December and he said, "Carl, we have a problem." So I said, "Tell me." So he said, "Your team is crazy. We've had all these issues with these guys and I'm going to lose my job." I said, "What happened?" So he said, "This happened, a DUI, one guy, this, another guy, all this stuff happened." So I said, "Don't worry, coach, I got this." I played number four on the team at the time. It was my sophomore year.
Hmm.
So he said, "What do you got?" I said, "Don't worry, leave it with me." So I went back to school, and like we talked about earlier, I doubled down on everything. I didn't go out on the weekend. I trained and ate like an animal. And I went from number four on the team to number one and one of the top college players in the US in basically 6 weeks. Like I
Cool.
didn't lose a match for like 6 weeks. It was
Right.
unbelievable. Even I was surprised, you know? But what happened was the team actually kind of turned on me
Hmm.
because when I was number four, I was safe. I
Right.
was the guy number four. That's my spot. Everybody else is in their spot. But I disrupted everything and I moved to one.
Right.
So the number two guy wasn't happy. The number three guy wasn't happy. Everybody got shuffled around.
Mm.
So what I learned from it is that not everybody's super happy, when you disrupt things,
Right.
but it doesn't matter. You have to be yourself,
Yep.
be true to your values, do the best you can.
Yeah.
And the people that respect that and you want in your ecosystem
Yeah.
will gravitate to it, but not everybody will.
Yeah.
So just do the right thing, be good, and let the naysayers do their thing. But your ecosystem is all people that are like-minded, good values, and strong work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do the best you can and let the chips fall where they may. Pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you're a busy guy. You have a business. You have charity, etc. So in the very little free time you have, how do you spend it?
Again, there is very little free time, but I have two daughters, 25 and 24 years old, and a partner I've been with for a long time. So I try to spend uh, every moment with them. Again, at 58, I'm a vintage
Mhm.
Markham operator, and it's just what I value right now. So yesterday, they live abroad. One was in Scotland and one's in LA.
Mhm.
So I was away with them a little 2 weeks ago, and they were both here 2 weeks ago. So I really try to talk to them, set up time with them. And if I can't, I make sure we're planning to meet up in the next couple months. And then the other thing is I just love tennis, so I watch tennis 24/7, all
Yeah.
the tournaments and try to keep updated. And one of the things I do a lot is a lot of the players, suffer a lot of injuries and a lot of setbacks, personal and professional. And they're just people like you and me,
Yeah.
even though they have this status as a superstar.
Right.
So, for example, last 2 weeks ago, I sent a note to Helga Rune, who's been one of the top players, young players for a couple of years now, and he tore his Achilles tendon.
Hmm.
So I sent him a note saying, "Hey, just checking in on you. How's rehab coming? We're excited to have you back." So I try to make sure that I'm the guy that is and not reaching out to them when they win Wimbledon, because
Yeah.
everybody does.
Right.
I'm there for them when they have hard times.
Yeah.
And, even I was in Rome the other day and I was in the players lounge and I was walking away and I heard Carl, Carl, Carl. And I turned around. It was Casper Ruud, one of the
Right.
nicest
Yep.
guys in the world. And he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" We had a good chat for about 15 minutes. And he said, "You're the only tournament director who's ever taken me out to dinner." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Well, it was a great dinner." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So you just try to take care of people as much as you can.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, as a guy who tennis is his life, I gotta ask, who's your favorite player of all time? Man, female, current, past, etc.
Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble here.
Oh, you can name a few.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that on the men's side, you know, we've had a really great era. I think Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal were such, hallmarks of our tennis industry, their sportsmanship,
Hmm.
that everybody kind of followed. You
Right.
couldn't be out of line because they set such a great example. The two of them are exactly like you see on camera. They're unbelievable people,
Hmm.
super kind, super humble, really easy to work with. Never had an issue with them. And they've always, My first year of the tournament with the men was 2007. And Rafa said to me, hey, he actually helped me.
Yeah.
He said, hey, you should use me for this and that and this and that and this. I didn't even know. And so those two guys are definitely standouts. The Canadians have been outstanding, really good people. And I'm a proud Canadian. And I think we're a little bit different because we're humble, kind people.
Right.
So the Milos, the Daniel Nestors,
Yeah.
Felix is unbelievable. He's
Yeah.
just a great, great guy. And then on the female side, I had a really close relationship with the Williams sisters. Serena built a school with me a few years ago in Jamaica. So just, the players have all been outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like not so much for their on-court performance, but just how good they are as people.
Yeah, they're like their own court performance speaks for itself.
Of
They're
course.
they're incredible, but I think, you try to treat people with respect and kindness. And, I tell everybody, like all the players are like, you're the most relaxed tournament director I've ever seen. Like you're so
Yeah.
chill. And I said, listen, we're not saving lives here. We're
Right.
not at war. We're running a tennis tournament.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. It's fun. We love it. Like enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Great message. And since this is, after all, a best of Markham podcast, what's your favorite business in Markham besides your own?
Yeah, I go to the Greek restaurant on Main Street down there
Hmm.
often, and we order food there. And I go to the Starbucks on the
Yep.
corner there as well, and some coffee shops. And as far as Markham, we're an operator in Markham in Rosalie Park, Premier Racquet Clubs, Markham, and we try to make sure we really hire as many Markham residents as we possibly can. And when we have to get, things maintenance or serviced, we try to hire within Markham because that's our home and we really want to benefit the residents of Markham. We also do some really interesting things. So we're a big advocate for MACA, Markham African Canadian Caribbean Association. Say
Hmm.
that 5 times fast.
Very, very
Um,
tough.
so we've sponsored programs for their youth since inception to give kids, an opportunity to play tennis. And we give some scholarships out. So we're really trying to be a better community advocate. And I
Hmm.
told Frank Scarpitti, the mayor, when I started this process, that we want to we want to be not a facility, but a community. And, we plant trees, we donate rackets, we donate shoes, we donate balls. We have a charity event every November.
Hmm.
So we really try to participate in the greater Markham area.
Awesome, awesome. So shout outs to Main Street Greek, the Starbucks on Markham Road and Highway 7, and Macca.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And lastly, how can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, just go to our website, premierracquetclubs.com, click on Markham, and you can see all our programs. We have, all levels, especially entry level. We really try to get a lot of people because tennis is a sport for a lifetime. And one of the secrets with our clubs is we have a really great community of game arranging. So people make friends at our clubs
Mhm.
and they're all hanging out in the clubhouse and having a great experience with one another and being fit and healthy. So go to our website, join one of our programs, and we'd love to see some new people come to our club this fall.
Awesome. So it's not just fitness, it's also social.
Exactly.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Carl, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Igor. Take care.
Sure thing.